Hi, Misha here, and it's time for another Stargate. Suppose it would be SG-1 or Stargate series, because they do plan on doing ones from Atlantis and even Universe. Anyway, another diecast model. Keep wanting to say Eaglemoss. Old habits, but from Master Replicas. And this series just started. They had released three, four, when Eaglemoss went kablook with several in the pipeline. And this was actually one released by Eaglemoss at the tail end, the Goa'uld, or Goa'uld if you're General Hammond. Hatak. Mothership. Pyramid ship. But I didn't pick one up then. In fact, the only one I got under Eaglemoss was the Daedalus. And by the time I got around, they were already gone. And I probably should have picked up a Death Glider because they were available for a while. But now they were sold out. But hopefully Master Replicas will bring it back, because they brought the Hatak back. And I brought the box over. I usually don't care much about boxes, but I asked my wife, and she said she didn't see any Eaglemoss branding on it, although it does say Hero Collector. So I don't know if that name is continuing, or if this is a new enough print from Master Replicas that the old names are gone. But these do seem to be freshly made, not old stock, but I could be wrong. But they'd already sold out of the first batch they had at Master Replicas. They were Eaglemoss leftovers. And they announced another wave in November of 2023, and this came to me in February of 2024. So I'm a couple of weeks late in doing this video, but what the hot talk? Let's talk about it anyway. Actually, I haven't had the spinny thing out in a few days. Here it is. The model is about 7.5 inches, I would say, maybe 8. The diecast part is the central pyramid structure, with the kind of more ornate outer superstructure being the plastic part, or ABS polymer if you prefer. Whatever. In the Stargate universe, the size seems to be about 650 to 700 meters across and about 315 meters tall. As standard, there are varying sizes of Hatak, because each system ward might customize them a little bit. But that's also why I firmly believe that the Daedalus has a length of not much more than 200 meters, because when you see these on screen, the Hatak is definitely larger than the Daedalus class. And so that kind of fits about right. And when you look inside the Daedalus, it's pretty compact and efficient. You look inside the Hatak on the show, you have large corridors, large bays, and just very ornate systems. Whereas the Daedalus is meant to be a warship, a cruiser. This is, of course, that. The Goa'ulds use these for warships, attack ships or assault ships, planetary bombardment. They use them as, I guess, spacecraft carriers, fighter carriers, and even troop transports and flagships. And they essentially are also flying palaces, especially when they land on a planet, which they can do. So it makes sense that they're more ornate and somewhat better appointed inside. Plus, of course, the Goa'uld, they're just more ostentatious. Yeah. Hatak in, Goa'ulese means pyramid ship. And actually, we first see what could be kind of a proto-Hatak in the Stargate movie, Ra's ship. But that was a four-sided pyramid that landed on, the pyramids on Earth in Abydos. And it was the Chiapas class. And it seems to be roughly 10,000 years old or older. And was more palace than warship, although it still had bays for the death gliders and weapons, of course, and was capable of hyperspace travel. This design, this HOTAC, seems to be newer. We see Apophis using these in Series 1 of SG-1. So, while they've been in service several hundred years, maybe even several thousand years, they're a somewhat newer design, and they have a 3-sided pyramid instead of 4. And of course they have this more structure out here. And then they can land on a planet, but if they use a pyramid, it'll need to be a 3-sided. And you also see them kind of using convenient mountaintops, although I doubt it's actually required for landing. Kind of find it interesting. It's actually a really nice stand these come with, but I think they missed a trick. It's just a nice flat base. I think they should have made this stand literally a pyramid. I think that would have been fantastic. Oh well. If you look on the underside, you can see the kind of negative space area where it would land. That also served as exhaust for the engine core and other things. Most of what was going on in the ship was in the central pyramid. Towards the top, at least above the superstructure area, was the Peltok, which was their version of a bridge. While it was rather open, it actually only had 3 stations, at least by default. I'm sure more chairs could be brought in if they needed to. Of course, the central throne was for the Goa'uld. The higher ranking he was, the more ornate. And then in front of him was a Jaffa, maybe his first prime, that mostly was managing the systems of the ship. It's quite interesting that it could be pretty much centrally controlled by one person at one large console. And then there was a third station that actually was sometimes recessed into the floor and not always visible, that controlled the weapons and other offensive and defensive systems. So, yeah. So not a whole lot on the ship as far as crew. In fact, it could be operated with a crew as small as about a dozen. But had a lot of space inside. It could easily carry at least 2,000 Jaffa troops. It's quite interesting that the Jaffa also kind of acted as the crew. You didn't really see ship's officers versus that. I don't know. Of course, it had shielding, and it was capable of hyperspace travel. Roughly speaking, it was about 32,000 times the speed of light in hyperspace, which means it could cross the Milky Way in roughly 3 years, from one end to the other. So, faster than Voyager. Maybe Janeway should have bargained with the Goa'uld for a hyperdrive. What do you think? So, good shields. The hull itself was Naquita based, because it's the Goa'uld. I'm sure it was a compound, not just straight that, but it had very good short-range sensors. It also had long-range sensors that could go out quite far, but you'd lose a little resolution. And, of course, the Goa'uld, it has weapons. The staff cannon, staff gun, was the Goa'uld's primary weapon. From the handheld version carried by Jaffa troops to the slightly more powerful, 2 or 3 times more powerful versions mounted by the Death Gliders, to the versions on this. Now we had some smaller ones that basically acted as point defense staff cannons that are around the ship. And then we had 24, 2 per ball turret, so 12 mounts, heavy staff cannons, essentially 6 on top, and then 6 on bottom, and again 2 per bubble. And these could pretty much fire any direction, including a planet's surface. And they had very variable yield. They could be shifted down to really not much more powerful than a Death Glider staff gun, or all the way up to several hundred megaton yield, maybe even 1,000. They basically could be made as powerful as a nuclear weapon. This for planetary bombardment. They were, of course, energy-based, and they were actually very rapid firing. In addition, these could carry energy bombs and or physical bombs, probably Naquita type. And that was really all it had for weapons. But I guess since they were variable yield and could point any direction, I mean, what more do you need? Keep in mind, this wasn't really a frontline combat ship as much as it was an agent of occupation and suppression of the enslaved populations, much like the death gliders or even the staff weapons themselves. Yeah, they weren't really straight up military assets. Although the system lords would use these against each other from time to time, typically these conflicts were kept to a minimum, and they were mostly only going up against primitive weapons until they met the Tari SG-1. Then, of course, we have the Death Glider bays. They're actually below the superstructure on the bottom part of the pyramid, and generally these carry 12 wings of Death Gliders, and they launch kind of sort of like a Viper. They're stored in racks, and then they're kind of set down on a launchway, a runway, and then propelled out at high speeds. When taking off and landing, they're typically controlled by the HATAC itself for safety and just efficiency. And then once they're out in space or in an atmosphere, because they can operate easily in both, then pilots would take over. Of course, the Death Gliders were crewed by two, typically a pilot, and then a navigator and weapons officer in the back. So yeah, 12 wings of those. Plus they usually could carry 3 wings of Al-Kesh, heavy, long-range bombers. On top of that, they could carry about 700,000 tons of cargo, including full Stargate setups. And they had very, very massive cargo bays. Pretty neat. Including for plunder, taxes, whatever. What really is the difference between extorting slaves for taxes or plunder, huh? And to move cargo around, if they didn't want to, directly do it, they had 5 primary ring systems plus 10 smaller backup ring systems. They had escape pods, although these weren't very fancy on the ship. They were just pretty much bullets that shot you out of the ship for a landing on a planet. And finally, the only other place we see inside is the engineering core, engineering room, where we have the central computer core, of course the hyperdrive, and the crystal network. Goa'uld technology is crystal driven, navigations and all that, and so the controls and everything were done with those. And then, of course, they had backups, crystals, in case things were broken or stolen. It's an interesting technology system. I wonder, though, since the Goa'uld rarely invent things themselves, more scavenging from others and then claiming, oh yeah, we did that. Posers. I wonder where they actually got the crystal system. For example, the ring system on these we know actually came from the ancients, just like the Stargates. So they may not have even designed the HATACs themselves. They might have copied this from someone else, or at least the technology, because the ostentatious nature of this ship does strike me as rather Goa'uld. But yeah, of course we see these throughout the show. Hundreds, if not thousands, exist in the galaxy. It was pretty much the primary capital ship of the system lords and even some minor Goa'uld. But there would be some variation in the ship, because typically when they were used as a flagship, especially by a powerful Goa'uld, they would take the basic design and sometimes make it a little larger and or give it better engines, sublight or hyperdrive, and or better, stronger shielding, and or better, stronger weapons. We see this with Apophis, and we definitely see it with Anubis. Although, to be fair, Anubis's main attack was rather different design, but still, the point remains that they could be custom made, or they could be more standardized, especially if they were not the main ship of the Goa'uld of the fleet. And I would like to see at least Ra's Chiappa class or Chop class. It would be cool to get Anubis's too. What do you think? In fact, since we've only had the Death Glider in the attack so far, what other Goa'uld ships would you like to see? I freely admit I'm mostly in the Stargate collection for the Earth ships and the Asgard ships. Although I wouldn't mind a couple of ancient ships too. But, I don't know. You gotta have some Goa'uld ships. You can't, you gotta have that. I personally would like to see an Alkesh, and I'd like to see a cargo ship, because both of those are pretty important to the show. Speaking of cargo ship, which had a cloak sometimes, we do see that at least Apophis did get cloaking devices on some attacks. But this seems to be rather uncommon for one reason or another. We actually see more than a handful of kind of customized or prototype versions throughout the run of SG-1. These do appear in Atlantis a little bit. And I think there are even some in the hands of the Lucian Alliance, if I'm thinking right, at the beginning of Stargate Universe. But I could be misremembering. It's been a long time since we had a new Stargate show on TV. But I'm very happy that Master Replicas said they're at least going to make this a 12-piece series, which means it'll be worth it. I was kind of feeling bad when I just had the one Daedalus. Not that it wasn't a good ship, it's just, I don't know, if you're going to have a collection, you at least need a few pieces, you know what I mean? Oh well. But now, I picked this up when they were on sale. I wasn't going to pay, eBay prices, but when they came back in, put my pre-order in, waited about 3 months and got it. I do like it. It is not really how I envisioned it looking, but that's nothing new at this point. I mean, the central pyramid part I knew was kind of there, but this outer structure, I was kind of confused what that is. It is kind of strange. I'm not sure what the kind of the reasoning is for this structure. I mean, it mounts the weapons, we see that, but most other ship systems don't seem to be on it. We have these spars, and then a lot of negative space. I think it might have something to do with the propulsion system, because we don't really see visible engines. They definitely use some kind of anti-grav technology, so maybe that has part to do with the propulsion and anti-grav, especially considering these are meant to land on a planet on a pretty regular basis. It may just be there because some Goa'uld thought they looked cool. By the way, according to this Gate World wiki, the inventor of the Hatak was known as Ta. T-A-H. I don't know why we need to know that, but hey, I aim to be complete. But yeah, it gives me at least something to go up against the 304 and 303. I will pick up a Death Glider, although if you've got a spare one and want to send it to me, hit me up. But I do like the 302, that's for sure. I wouldn't even mind getting a 301 just for funds. But overall, I'm not at all disappointed, and I think Master Replicas, originally Eaglemoss, did a good job with this model. It's a little light, but then again, we have a lot of negative space, and this is plastic, so this is only being metal. Yeah. But it is solid feeling. It doesn't feel rattly, creaky. Got a little on this one, but solid. Yeah, it's not... It feels well constructed. As to the paint, I don't know, you tell me. I do like the stand too. It's very non-obtrusive, and it actually stays on the stand very well. Although, don't knock it. It's not really pegged in anyway, but sitting on a shelf, it's not going to readily come off. I guess they're just not ever going to do magazines again. I mean, it doesn't really matter to me, but I think a lot of people enjoyed those, so yeah, there you go. But no, we've been wanting to talk about this for a couple of weeks, but no big urgency since this isn't really a new release. This is the second release. Speaking of, for those that matter or care, yeah, they still do put a thing. Are these still numbered? I feel like there's a sticker down there. But I don't know if they're individually numbering these like Eaglemoss or if they've kind of gotten rid of that. To be fair, that was a little bit of a hinky thing. But especially considering it was the base that was numbered, not the ship itself. Of course, it is on a table just fine. Anyway, guys, I don't know. Something different to talk about, right? Hope everyone's having a good start to their March. And as always, if you could, please like, share, and subscribe. And I'll keep on trying to get you interesting videos, but good golly, modern prices. I've had to slow down some, you know. Not like the days when I could pick these up for 15 bucks on the Eaglemoss website. I think this one was $49. But like I said, I pre-ordered it in November, so gave me time to easily pay it off. With that, let me know what you think. Let me know what your favorite Goa'uld ship is, or maybe you don't like them at all. I don't know. Let's discuss. This is Misha. Catch you very soon. Next time.